Hello again. Hello, Jumbo. Welcome. Assalamu alaikum to Ammijaan's kitchen. And today we are going to make a chickpea stew or soup with a tomato base and potatoes. And the option as well for chickpeas is you can always use them in salads, especially if it's in the summer, or you can make hummus out of it. You can't go wrong with that. So basically it's a couple of things that you can do with chickpeas. I personally prefer to buy dried chickpeas, soak them overnight or even just 4 to 5 hours depending, and then work with them from there. Boil them, and we'll talk about all that in a minute. Or otherwise, there's a simpler and faster way of doing it where you weren't expecting to do this ahead of time, and at the last minute you can always buy a can of chickpeas. Drain and rinse it and then take it from there. So here we go. Today we have dried chickpeas. So there it is when they're dry. I'm sure you've seen them in the supermarket. That's what they look like. And these have not been soaking overnight. Ideally, I like to have them soak overnight. But these have just been soaking from this morning, and they're pretty good because it's about 5-6 hours. So they look nice and soft. And there we are. I'm going to just wash them a couple more times, rinse them out, and then put them in enough water to cover them. And I personally like to add a little bit of coarse salt to it, so then when they cook they already have that nice flavor to them, and it's not as if that you're waiting for the flavor to be added by the sauce. So you could even just throw those once they're boiled and salted in a salad, or again, as we said earlier, in hummus. What I sometimes do is boil 4 to 5 cups of them and then pack them in little Ziploc bags and freeze them. And then in the middle of a busy day, as we all are, you just grab a couple of buckets and away you go with it. So we're going to today make chickpea in a tomato-based soup, stew, whatever you call it. It's an African Indian name. We call it Chana Bateta, which literally means chickpea and potato. So we'll take it over in a minute and I'll show you how it's done. Here we are. We've got the chickpeas. I've already added a little bit of salt in here, about a teaspoon and a bit. It was coarse salt. And I've got my newfangled thing here from the kids. It's a pressure cooker. It's a power pressure cooker. It works really well. There's an insert in there. And I'm going to just make sure there's enough water in the chickpeas to cover them. And I'm going to pour it all in. There we are. Make sure it's all nice and soft, mixed up in there. And basically, I have to lock this. So I have to go from here and bring it. I have to just turn it around. Okay, there we are. And click it, make sure it's locked. And I've got this little whistle thing, which I have to go to the 2 arrows to be matched up. It's not the equipment that matters really. So here we are. And basically I'm going to press the beans and lentils, which gives me the time. And since I want it to cook a bit longer, I'm going to go ahead and put it for 15 minutes. Now, hopefully this should be enough, because I noticed this one cooks everything a lot faster than the regular pressure cooker I had, or even a pot on the stove. You could cook it on a pot on the stove, but you might look at about a half an hour to 40-minute time. While this one, we all hope it should be done in 15 minutes. And while this is cooking, we'll go ahead and prepare our sauce. There we are. We have a few ingredients here just to give you an idea what's going to be happening. These are black mustard seeds. You find them in typical Indian stores, even in superstore in the Indian aisle. And obviously a little bit of salt. This one is coriander, fresh. I prefer seeds. I buy seeds and actually freshly ground them. This is cumin. You can tell the color is completely different. This is a little bit of chana flour, chickpea flour. This is turmeric. Everybody knows turmeric. And then this one is garlic, ginger, and chili. All the green that you see in there is chili. So what I do is I always prepare my garlic and ginger and chili in a bullet at one time, and I use olive oil to mix it all up, and then I flat pack it in Ziploc bags and it goes in the freezer. And then as I need it, I take out. I would say that's about a good 2 tablespoons of garlic, ginger, and chili. And then here we have got tiny cubed potatoes, olive oil, and what I have done in here is I've cut pieces of ginger. So this is my ginger flavored oil, just for a little bit of zest. Water, which we'll be needing, and this is amazing. These are curry leaves, very much like bay leaves, but they're curry leaves, and they have a beautiful aroma. A little bit hard to find, but you could find them in Indian stores like Fruticana. And sometimes I've even seen them at TNT. So there we are. This is what we'll need, and of course we'll need our tomato. I think earlier I was saying that in the summer I enjoy going in the garden and planting my tomatoes, and then when I harvest them, because I can't use them all at once, what I tend to do is just blend them fresh as I bring them from the garden, and then since I love chilies quite a bit, I throw in a couple of chilies and just Ziploc bag them. So they're frozen, and it says tomato with chili 2016. So I got that out of the freezer. You can see it's dripping a little bit, but there we go. So that's going to be the tomato, and I think that's all we need. We hope. So here we go. This is the ginger olive oil I said. I don't measure, so let's just look at it. I would say about a good couple of tablespoons, just enough to go around and cook the mustard seeds. The most important thing here, I have to just drop the ginger down so it can get, there we go, and that should be good. Okay, so just to show you how much we have in there. Okay, and enough to coat the pan nicely. And let's just bring it to a nice hot point, and then we're going to put the mustard seeds and the curry leaves. These two go first because they are going to be, how do you call it, like a tempering. You want to infuse the flavor. But the trick is, I've done this before and I learned the hard way, is if you don't let the mustard seeds pop, the sauce tastes bitter. So you have to remember to let the mustard seeds pop. So let's wait a little bit longer, and you know how you can kind of tell that the oil's getting hot because it'll start to smoke a little bit. So it's not very high, it's on, you know, medium-high heat, and we're just going to wait a little bit. I can see it starting to do its thing, and maybe just for knowing, I'm going to take one little seed and pop it right in there, and I don't see much movement yet. So let's just maybe crank it up a little bit, cover it up, and let it start happening in there. In the meantime, I just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the chickpea flour. Why I have here this is because I'm using fresh tomatoes from the garden, as we discussed. There you see I opened up the bag, and doesn't that look beautiful? This is summer in a ball. So what I'm going to do here, because it's so liquidy, is I'm going to take a little bit of this sauce and make this chickpea into a paste, which I will use later. Okay, so there, maybe one more teaspoon, and I don't want to burn my oil on the other side, but there we go. Okay, I might need a little bit more to make it into a thick paste. There, it's happening actually, and we can always add a little bit more later. There, see? So we can always play with that in a minute, but here we go. Let's get back to this. I can feel it smoking. I can smell a little bit of that ginger. Now this one, really, to give you an idea how much it is, that's about a teaspoon, and that's about 2 teaspoons. You don't want too much. That's plenty. Even the curry leaves, I love them, so we'll put them all. There we go, and you can hear them pop. I'm going to turn it down a tad. Okay. I can smell it. I can smell the beautiful smell of the curry leaves and the mustard seeds happening. So we're just going to shake it up a little bit. Wait till you actually hear it pop. That's very important. As we said before, I've done it many a times when I haven't waited, and I learned the hard way. Like I said, I bite into it, and you can taste the bitterness of the mustard seeds. The black mustard seeds are very Indian. I think I have heard of white mustard seeds. I have never used them myself. But these ones, you will find them in Superstore. Do you hear it pop? Yeah, and I can actually see them jumping up. So now the next thing to do immediately is stop that hot oil thing that's happening in there. And the best way to do that is to add a little bit of water, or we could have continued using that nice soft tomato water. But we'll just go ahead and add just a little bit of water. Pop, pop, I can hear it. And if I lift it, you'll see it jump. So I'm going to add there. Okay, this is to stop. There, you can see all the mustard seeds popping up. So it's basically to stop that cooking action. I lowered the heat, by the way, a little bit. Okay. And now with spices, it's very important you cook the spices before you put the sauce. So since the potatoes are raw, sometimes I cheat and I put the potatoes in at the last minute with the chickpeas, but I don't know how to work this newfangled thing by opening it. So I'm just going to throw them in here and hope they'll cook here, and if not, we'll work with them later. So, potatoes go in. Okay, let's give it a minute, and now all the spices will start to go in. Since we're finished with this, we'll leave it there. Turmeric, that's for me, is still a little bit too much. We won't use it all. There's our nice paste. See? And that's just a thickener, so I'll show you when we put that. There we are. So here we go. We can bring the camera a little bit closer, and you can see the potato trying to kind of give it a little frying effect. The curry leaves. Ooh, the mustard seeds are still popping. So maybe we'll add a tad more water and let these potatoes cook in the steam a little bit. And then our next thing is going to be garlic, ginger, and chili, and all the spices. Another way to do it is put your spices in together with the garlic, ginger, chili, and make a little paste. But I prefer just to individually add them as I go. So turning it down again just so I can open it. I'm going to put all the garlic, ginger, and chili, which is about, at least, there you go, 2 tablespoons. This one is, I'd say a tablespoon, a good tablespoon. That was cumin. This is coriander. Cumin and coriander are the basic Indian spices. So let's give them a little coat. Let them cook a little bit back to that little bit higher heat. You have to cook the spices before you add the liquid, like tomato and water. You have to give them that little time where the flavor can actually come out of the spice itself. So we've coated all the potatoes nicely. They may not cook the potatoes as we said before, but we'll see. I don't like a lot of turmeric. It's very good for you, but we'll say about a half a teaspoon. I think that should be enough. Okay, and a little bit more stirring of that. And I wish you could smell this. It smells beautiful. So there we are. And a little bit higher heat now. There's no fear of those mustard seeds popping anymore. And sometimes I go as far as doing this. I actually take a couple of mustard seeds and taste them. And they don't taste bitter because we let them pop. Otherwise, right at this stage, you know they're bitter. It might be worth the time and effort to scratch the whole mixture and start again. Or even better still, taste it a bit before you put the mixture in. Okay, so there we are. That's all happening nicely. And I'm going to add a little bit more water in here. Just before I put it all in there. Now that the spices have cooked, our next step, really, it's very simple, is to put the tomato in. The spices are all in, they've already cooked, they've done the little infusing, and now in goes all the tomato with the water. Easy, mix it all up. There we are. And because obviously mine was from a freezer, it's got a big blob, but that should melt in no time since I'm already waiting for the potatoes to cook. So this will help me get the potatoes cooking. And I think if you just heard the beep, that was my pressure cooker basically saying 15 minutes are up and hopefully the chickpeas are done. So at this stage, we're going to stop here for this process and just cover it up on about 4 or 5 and leave it. But just before we leave it completely, let's go back to this. If you are using crushed tomato paste, you may not need this, but I like it because it also adds a nice flavor. So here we go. Let's just add this. This is a thickener. So we're going to add this up. Okay. And where is our little spatula? I like the little spatula. But you can use whatever you like at home, whatever you are comfortable with. You can see that nice thick yellow color already, and that's all coming from the chickpea paste. And after all, we are cooking chickpeas, so no harm in thickening agent of a chickpea paste, okay? There. This whole thing will now let the potatoes cook and the tomato to melt further, and the little bit of green that you can see coming out of there is the chili that I had blended when I did the tomatoes in the summer. And this is another thing to do at this point, is a quick little, I can taste the chickpea flour. It's a little bit raw, but other than that, it tastes nice. The salt is right. We're going to cover it up and forget about it for a little while, and let's get back to our chickpeas and see if they're cooked. The chickpeas are done. They're a little bit firm, but then that's good because you are going to cook them with the sauce. Otherwise, they taste like two separate entities. You want to boil them together for a good hour. So if we just have a look at the sauce, you can see everything is beautifully amalgamated here. The potatoes are still, there's a little boil happening. And by the way, I noticed that I didn't add salt when we were on the camera. So I added a pinch because I tasted it. So I, just a pinch like that. I put 2 of those. But really, salt is a very personal thing. You decide what you like, okay? And there we have it. Everything is nicely mixed up. Potatoes are absolutely raw. They're not ready yet. But again, as it's going to take another hour for it to boil, they should be good when we are ready. And here we have those chickpeas, all boiled, nicely done. And actually, I'm going to save a little bit of that broth because I think it's a bit too much broth and I don't want it to be too liquidy. So I'm just going to gently drain some of this broth in a bowl that's sitting here. I'll probably end up discarding it because you don't want it too runny. And there we go, because the whole point was we were adding a thickener to make it nice and thick, so we don't want to make it runny again. So here we go, gently add. There. And there we have it. It's all nicely done. Look at that. Lovely. Very, very runny. And that's good because you're going to let it boil for a long time and that's what's going to thicken it up. So that way, when it's really nice and runny like this, it's a good soup type thing. And if you make it a bit thicker, you call it a stew. So there we have it. We're going to bring it to a good boil and then I'm going to turn it on minimum and leave it for an hour. One last thing people like, some don't, some do. I love it. At the very end, I'm going to chop about a few stems of cilantro and sprinkle it over the top. And if you don't like cilantro, that's fine. So there you have it. We have chickpea with potatoes, soup/stew, whatever you want to call it. Thank you very much for watching me on Ammijaan's Kitchen. And please come again. We'll try something new. Bye-bye. Have a good day.